Good morning, everyone. So good to be together today and reunited after being together in March and then being in person for those of us who were present for the walk through the gardens with Marge on Palm Sunday and before her birthday. And then, of course, so much that has happened before and so much more to come. So as of now, I see a lot of familiar faces. So welcome, and names. So beautiful to be together. If they were some of the people who had said they might be joining who were not familiar with Call by Love, it might have gone a little bit different to make sure everybody had a sense of where we were. But as we're together, just as a way to set the field, Marge and I just did that together, just the two of us, but we'll also do a version of this together to set the field and place an intention for our time together as being a fractal of what is to come way beyond the call and our gathering today. So just invoking our guides, the divine, to be with us, to guide us in all the ways that are for the highest good. Again, not just on our time today, but the seeds being planted today and that are also already reaping a lot of the harvest of the many years that we have had together, and then opening up to what is to come and what is for the highest good in the midst of many more changes. So I'm delighted that Marge is back. Picked her up from the airport yesterday afternoon. So a lot of the updates, I'm going to get them live with you because we had not much time to talk between refilling the groceries and March taking a nap and then being ready for the call. So a lot of it will be new for me as well. I got a few glimpses of the elements that she wants to share. And Ed, I know you are things to share as well. So I think, Marge, we are ready for you. I'll pass it on to you.
Well, I just saw that Shara's online, and Shara, welcome. So glad you're here today. And Shara is one of the team of the new ministers at Unity in Tustin. Actually not new much any longer. It's almost a year or maybe a year. And how beautiful it is as we go into these amazing gifts of transformation that allow consciousness to continue to emerge in their magnificent and profoundly important ways now on the planet at this time. And one of the things that I'm really aware of is the influence that has impacted us over the last period of time. And for me, and I'm guessing maybe for many of you, it started right about the time of the pandemic. Before it was really announced, before it was already emerging, no one really understood what was happening. And we had to go into the unknowing as best we knew how, with different opinions and different points of view, and dancing all of the polarities, which are absolutely necessary as we shine light on the darkness and emerge into new levels of light. And what I want to start with is something I've very rarely done in my 30 years of ministry. Start with a reading that I got from astrology. That's kind of a strange way to begin a spiritual course, but maybe that's potentially one of the highest levels of the spiritual. So I want to just share with you something that showed up. One of the things that I did this year was to take a course called The Changing of the Gods. And it was hosted in part by Rick Tarnas, who wrote a book on psyche and consciousness and spirit, psyche and spirit. And it was profound to me, linking history over hundreds of years into the movement of the planets. And on that course, I met a teacher that said she rarely did anything like this, but for Rick Tarnas, she would do anything. and as I listened to her, I signed up for her to do a reading on my own birth chart because I thought it would be interesting simply to have her perspective on my natal chart. And it was fascinating to me. And then the next thing I thought, well, I wonder what it's showing up for now. What are the transits that are happening right now in my life that relate to the moment I came in as a soul into this planet? And made the choice to come in, made the choice to meet some of you, made the choice to do some of the things I've done in my life, made the choice, and you made the choice also. And what I'm really aware of is that many of us that are on this call are potentially part of a soul family, part of a one soul, multiple levels of reality existing simultaneously, and that we have come in to guide and to show the way and to bring others through, not force them, not in any way intimidate them, not or shame and blame them in order to doing any kind of change, but simply to be who we are to our fullest potential so that others will see the light that radiates in us and through us and as us, and be imprinted by that very light with no words attached potentially, and yet the transformative energy of spirit always already there, no matter what's going on. So I want to go back to one particular description of a transit that happened in my life, actually right now. It started in April, and this is the time that I was in California trying to do everything I could possibly do to organize teams of caretakers 24/7 for my brother who was going through what ended up revealing itself as the last years of his life. And then in mid-April, I went to Colorado, and that was during the time that he made his transition through the veils. And on the way to the airport, Fabienne and I had a profound conversation. What I'm aware of is that the soul can be with anyone at any point in time without being physically present, simply by being aware of the consciousness that's unfolding and feeling the yearning to be with that, sit in that circumstance, in that situation, with the souls that are involved. Fabienne and I were driving to the airport en route for me to take the flight to Denver. And I said, I feel Willard's presence. I think he's here with us. And I said, he is at a point of choice right now. And the choice for him is going to be whether to go on and go into the higher levels of light, which he's seeing somewhat dimly, but it's there. He's aware of it. If he makes that choice, and it'll be the highest choice. And my daddy and my mom and people that he has loved, our stepfather that we call Dad, they will all be there waiting for him and cheering him on and showing him the way and saying, oh, Willard, we are so glad to see you. We've been waiting for you. We've been with you every moment. And the other potential is that he'll make a different choice. He'll choose to come back, knowing that I'm going to be there in Colorado with him, knowing that because he knows me, I'll be bringing in a lot of spiritual energy and potential spiritual ways of healing. But But if he makes that choice, it'll be the hardest choice. And he'll have to struggle. It'll be really difficult. He'll have to rebuild his strength. He's 81 years old and he's gone through a lot. He's gone through a traumatic brain injury, and ultimately he would go through another brain injury that would involve internal bleeding of the brain, and he would have to navigate that and experience what they call boreholes, allowing the pressure to be relieved from the brain. I said, so he's in a really important moment of choice in the journey of his soul, and time will tell which he chooses. And I was on the plane and very aware suddenly of his presence again. And he said, I made the highest choice. I'm flying with you now. Just an amazing awareness. And as many of you know, I've learned to listen through the veils. I've studied with some of the people that helped me begin to understand how that works, like Suzanne Giesman. And I could hear him clearly saying, I've made the highest choice. And as I landed, I got the news that he had passed through the veils. And so this is a really, really important time for us. It was an important time for me. A lot of my values were about to shift. I didn't even know that this would happen. The first of the year, I was planning on launching a year-long course and on Called by Love, and I was working on the plans for it and doing all of the kinds of things that you do to do those things. By mid-January, when Willard fell on the ice the first time, everything shifted. So what has happened in your life? This is really important that you apply it. And you may want to have a note, a blank piece of paper in front of you. What's happened in your life that has shifted your life within the last 3 years, within the last month, 2 months, 3 months? What has happened? And so, but as I began to go into this connection of the planets, the influence of the cosmic energy on us as embodied souls, I want to read a certain description that is in my personal natal chart as a transit that started in April of this year. It will be exact on June 3rd. You'll find that date interesting when Ed speaks. It'll be exact on June 3rd, and it will last into July, toward the end of July. So it's Uranus, which is a planet of transformation, is transiting in conjunction with my natal Uranus, which is at 16 degrees Taurus. Now that's very interesting because that's Fabienne's sun sign, her birth sign. And so this particular transit is one of the strongest blends of energies that is represented by these two planets, Uranus, and that is a universal, transiting in every single one of your charts, not just mine, it's universal, but it's also transiting in my natal Uranus, and that's at 16 degrees Taurus. That may be too much astrology for some of you, so I'm going to jump into sharing with you a little bit of the description of that. You are undergoing an important transition in your life in which you will be, in some sense, reborn. You are entering a chrysalis stage where seminal ideas emerge that will be seeds for a new phase You become the butterfly emerging. Butterflies have been so important in Fabienne's life. They've been important in my life. A process of change that has been underway for some years, perhaps even many years, now begins to manifest rather suddenly. A revolutionary vibration electrifies new ways of being. That is absolutely fascinating to me, to read that as this transit that's happening right now in my cosmic chart. And I say cosmic because the word astrology is a trigger and reactive to some people, but cosmic seems to have a different energy. So I just wanted to share that little bit of information. And
Thank you, March. I think I'm sorry, I'm trying to answer messages and here and there, but did you mention the transit was also connected to June 3rd?
yes, that's when it's absolutely exact.
Another 16
Absolutely. It starts in April, it goes into toward the end of July, and it's absolutely exact on June 3rd. So I want to go to Ed right now. Some of you have been asking questions. What is going on in Marge's life? Ed and I have known each other for 50 years almost. So go ahead, Ed. Unmute, Ed.
Okay, yeah. Yes, Marge and I met at a singles dance in Kansas City, Missouri on June the 2nd, 1972. So we're coming up on 50 years. And it was held at the Kansas City football team's Arrowhead is their home, Arrowhead. And a singles dance, and I was up in the stands looking down, people talking, and I saw this one gal talking with about 5 or 6 guys around her. And she was radiant. This person was just radiant. And so I said, well, I've got to meet her. So I walked up to her while she was talking to this group of guys. I said, excuse me, would you like to dance? And very courteously, she said, well, right now, as you can see, I'm busy, but sure, ask me later. So I backed off and went up and sat down. And then all of a sudden they dispersed and the guys went different places and she went to a booth by herself. So I walked up and I said, would you like to dance? And she did. And the rest is history. You know, I believe, as I'm sure many of us do, that there are those significant occasions in one's lives that forever changes or improves your life. In my case, going in the Navy was one of them. Moving to Kansas City from St. Louis was another one. And meeting Marge was also very significant in my life. As you can see, we're still communicating and knowing one another. And I mean, we were significant in one another's lives also way back when. I mean, she helped propel me into a change in my life, encouraged me to go back to college, which I did. We were together and she once said to me, what is it you like to do? I said, I'd like to go back to college, which is what I did. And the rest of that is history as well. So anyway, we went horseback riding on the 6th, which was Buddy's birthday. And Buddy was in Boulder with his grandparents. And so we went horseback riding and once again, the rest is history. So here we are. And when I heard that Willard passed away, that was Marge's only living relative, but she does have a niece, right? Brenda. But other than that, all your other relatives have passed on. And I said to Marge, I says, Marge, it's time for you to move back to Kansas City. And it was like a thunderbolt when I heard that Willard had passed away. And I was talking to Marge on the phone and I said, you need to move back to Kansas City. And Marge, I'm sure she thought about it, but then she said yes. And so Marge and I are going to be together on June the 2nd. We're going to go to a restaurant called Propopos here big, nice restaurant, very fancy, and the rest is going to be history. So thank you, Marge. You propelled my life to be nothing but blessed.
So one of the testimonials on Called by Love Institute is a testimonial for the greatest nonprofits. And Ed wrote a beautiful testimonial called Radiance. And it's still there if any of you are curious. It absolutely touched my heart. So we lived together for more than 2 years. We were almost moving toward 3 years of living together. And I was just beginning to tap into the energies of the women's movement.
Mhm.
It was at the very beginning of Ms. Magazine and Gloria Steinem. And I took a course for continuing education credits, and had an assignment to go home and have my students, I was teaching in the secondary school system, have my students look in their history books. I was teaching history and English, and count the number of names of men in the index, and count the number of names of women in the index. I was shocked. It was just abominable. It was way distorted. And then the next one was to go to the literature book and count the number of pictures of women, count the number of pictures of men, count the number of authors who are women, the number of authors who are men. Again, shocking. And I said, you know, I'm teaching out of these books. Where can I get books that are balanced? And she said, well, there's only one publishing house that's beginning to work on this, my teacher. And she said, it's called the Feminist Press in New York. And so she gave me a phone number and the name of the person, the founder of the Feminist Press. And I called her, and she said, we're just beginning the research. We're looking through diaries. We're looking through, and all kinds of amazing kinds of things they were doing to produce the research, to find the research, to produce the books, and to influence the publishers. And I had a background in influencing politicians and influencing people like that, because I was chair of the Political Action Committee for Educators in Kansas City. And Ed was very involved in politics. and she said, you're really serious about this, aren't you? And I said, yes. She said, so why don't you come to New York for the summer and volunteer for the summer, and you can live with me and my husband. His name was Paul Lauder of the Estee Lauder family. And I said, oh my God. And I told Ed about it, and I said, I can't do that. You know, I'm a mom. My son has to go to summer school this year. And Ed said, we've been living together for almost 3 years. Ed and I get along Bud and I get along just great. And I have to go to summer school too. So why don't you go to New York? I can take care of Bud. We'll be just fine. And I did. So, and the rest is history. I went on from there to do my doctoral degree at UMass. Interestingly, that took us, Ed and I, into a decision-making point. I invited him to come to Massachusetts with me. And your response, Ed, was?
I'm a Midwestern boy. I'm not going to that big city in called New York.
And so what we seem to have done at that point in time was take diverging paths that somehow might come back together in a connecting path at a future point in time. And it's very, very fascinating to see how life emerges in ways we don't understand, that our human selves could not even plan or execute. And so Ed and I have both been through 3 marriages and 3 divorces. For Ed, 2 of them were to the same woman. And so we've known love and we've known loss. And we've always sort of playfully described our relationship of many, many years as an unfinished love story. Anything else, Ed, you want to share?
No, not really, except that I still get along really well with Ellen. Had two wonderful children with Ellen. And the other day I called Ellen, and she lives here in Kansas City, and mentioned that, you were coming back to Kansas City, and she wasn't surprised. So, and I think she also felt that you and I have that unfinished love story. Yes.
And she has remarried, and she and her husband now live in Kansas City. And
Right.
one of the things that's really attractive to me about Ed is the wonderful relationship that he has with his children and with his grandchildren. And of course, Bud was my only child, my only son, and he passed away in 2004. So I have no children that are living, and I have no grandchildren. So I'm looking forward to becoming connected in that kind of family way again. And actually, someone asked me the question, well, how will you bond with Ed's children? I said, I've been bonding with them for 50 years, even before they were born.
Well, every time you come to Kansas City, we'd go over to their house, and you love the grandchildren. So
yeah, and your children too. I said to Shayna one time, you could have been my daughter. And I got her first job in events management at Unity College. So the bonding is already in place. Right. And so I'm looking at all of this with anticipation and curiosity and delight, and absolutely amazed that here Ed and I, in our 80s, Ed's actually, he reminded me yesterday, he's younger than I am.
But I'm still in my 80s.
And amazed to kind of be aware of a new chapter emerging, a chrysalis stage and a butterfly emerging. So, and I saw Laurel with her hand raised. Do we want to go to Laurel, Fabienne?
Sure.
Sure. I see you haven't muted, so we are ready for you, Laurel. And thank you both, Marge and Ed, for sharing from the transit and the significance of that, and another link to June 3rd and 6/3, and then all up to this moment and completing your love story. Wishing you the best.
Oh, is it my turn now?
Yes, Laurel.
Yeah.
Oh, so thank you so much. Thank you for that beautiful sharing. And I asked to talk because I have something to share with you about June 3rd. So at Passover, at Passover, we left the narrow space, and because Egypt, the Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim means the narrow space. And so we left Egypt, and then there's 7 weeks of called counting the Omer, that we're counting up so that we come to Shavuos, which means weeks, is when we receive the Torah, God's word, again at Sinai. So Sfirat HaOmer means to count the Omer. The Omers it's barley. It's from scripture that you'll bring for 7 Sabbaths, you'll bring this offering. Well, Kabbalists, what they do is they read it as Sfirot HaOmer, which is the Sfirot, the spheres on the Kabbalistic trees of life. And so the 7 lower spheres of emotion, we count each week, we stay with one sphere. So the first week, we're with Chesed, which means loving kindness. And then each day we have the quality of the remaining spheres and how does it affect the main sphere, because we're purifying and we're opening up. We're opening up that sphere and we're opening ourselves up for all the blessings and to draw down that healing energy into our souls at all the different levels of the soul, of the ruach and the nefesh and the neshama, which is, neshama is soul, and it's the same word for breath, and God's breath breathing through us. So the first week we were in chesed, and so the first day we would count chesed shebe chesed, which is loving kindness within loving kindness. And then the second day we would move to the quality of gevura, which is strength and boundaries and containment. And how does that then affect chesed, which is loving kindness? So it's like when you think of love, that's pure love, just given and given freely. But then how do you contain that so that it's like if you turn on the faucet to water the grass, you would overwater it if you didn't close it in some way. So each week we go through the different spheres. And so June 3rd is the very last night of the counting of the Omer, which brings us in to this holiday of Shavuos, where we receive Torah. So the count for June 3rd that will start at sundown is Malchus Shebe Malchus, the divine presence, the Shekhinah, which is the indwelling presence of God within us, within the Shekhinah. So June 3rd is divine presence within divine presence. And then that day, which then that's that Friday night, takes us into Tikkun Leil Shavuos, which is, it means the correction of the night before Shavuos, which is then to receive Torah. But the word tikkun, which means to heal or to correct, also means to adorn. And on that night, we're adorning the Shekhinah with gems of rubies and emeralds and diamonds, and they're Torah verses, they're God's word, and we're preparing her for this mystical union, the feminine part of God with the masculine part of God that comes into this holy oneness and this holy mystical marriage that will take place on Shavuos. And that's when we receive the tablets, which is the Torah, the Word, the Bible, and that's like the baby, and so it's this whole dance of mystery. And so I wanted to share with you that occurs, that sacred time merges right at the evening of sunset on June the 3rd. And then there's one other thing I just wanted to share with you about radiance, is that tonight at sundown, we have a holiday called Lag BaOmer. And Lag BaOmer, we're celebrating Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was the writer of the very sacred text, Kabbalistic text called the Zohar. And the Zohar is the book of radiance. And so when you talked about the testimonial that had to do with radiance, that coincides right with right now that we're going to be celebrating the esoteric and deep mysteries that were brought by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Book of Radiance, and we celebrate that now. So I just really wanted to share those two things with you. That's why I raised my hand, and I also just want to thank you for the sharing. I love to hear about your journey so much, and I just want to tell you that I'm so blessed and so grateful that you're part of my journey, going back to 1994, 95. And for those on the call who don't know, Marge was my rabbi and my bas mitzvah, which is a daughter of the commandments, and we did it in unity in the sanctuary. And it remains one of the most sacred times that I've ever had. So, Marge, I love you so much. Fabienne, I love you so much. And thank you for letting me share about June 3rd.
Oh, Laurel, that was just beautiful. And you know how profound the teachings for my life have been about mystical union and the marriage of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. It's all part of Site 6 in the gardens. And Fabienne did a whole weekend workshop on that and the fractals that are involved in that. And thank you, Laurel. That was just exquisite. So
It was really exquisite. And we love you too, Laurel. Really glad you can be here. I have to share one more thing and I'll pass it back on to Marge and Ed if there is more. Because in the email, I mentioned my invitation to everyone for the Panorhythmy dance on Sunday morning. And before leaving on Sunday, this was the second week we were dancing at Unity. We were dancing at another location before. But before leaving that day, for the first and only time so far, I felt like calling, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. But I have this little representation of the Merkaba or the Metratron cube that I bought in Belgium. And I put it in the center of our circle, which was between Site 7 and 8 in the garden at Unity near the Peace Pole, which is also near Marge Legacy Bench and the waterfall when we return to the world with gifts bestowing hands. So at the end of the dancing, Evelina, who leads the dance, had a set of cards. I think it was called the Bearers of Light. And I picked a card and I'm going to share my screen. Laurel, you're not going to see it, but I will describe it. It is the Shekinah. And the symbol at the center of, so it's a woman and there is a dove, which is also very symbolic with unity, and Kay being here and the big dove in the bookstore in March, they can share about that. But it's the Shekinah, and at the center of the dove is the same symbol that I was holding, that I placed in the center of the circle. So it's connecting all the dots one more time. So I just wanted to share that as a wing that you brought up, Lauren, because Laurel, I hadn't planned on sharing that. So thank you.
And so this is a wonderful example of how things happen spontaneously. The things that are occurring now are coming to us from beyond the human mind. Our human mind has never experienced them at the levels that they're coming now, and we have no way of knowing how to do it. The only way we can know how to do it is to listen to the guidance, to be available to that energy, to say yes to that energy as it reveals itself, to recognize it, even when we have never experienced it before, and simply say, oh my God. So profoundly beautiful, so profoundly significant, and all of it happening. So one of the things I also want to share with you for today is that this in some ways is the passing of the baton from me to Fabienne. Fabienne and I coming home from the airport last night discussed this, and I said, you know, you have some big decisions ahead of you. You have to decide whether you're ready to step into the role of leading in a significant way instead of supporting Called by Love, because I am potentially going to Kansas City. I'm going to potentially be with Ed, and you have to figure out what your next steps are, and that's going to impact what's going to happen for Called by Love. So Fabienne, do you have anything to share about that?
Yes, there is a lot to share. Actually, you told me that this morning, like 15 minutes before the call. We had talked in some ways, but the real passing, we were just talking about that before today. And yes, I also was thinking, you know, like our journey, we're going in parallel for the last couple of weeks because we didn't get to talk much while Marge, when you were in Colorado. And I knew some of the changes coming, and I was thinking about Called by Love, and I feel like Called by Love has more potential than where we have been so far, and it can grow, it can expand. There was another synchronicity on Sunday morning where Jennifer, another person from the panel, with me out of the blue without knowing anything about Called by Love. She was like, I think it would be great to have a program for children and all the colors of the rainbow being different programs and a nonprofit. And I was like, well, we can talk because there are possibilities. And then I told them a little bit about Called by Love and the colors of the rainbow and the connections with the garden sites, all of that. So yes, I'm definitely willing and I believe able to take Called by Love in an expansion. And I'm also very clear that I cannot continue what I've been doing, which was, doing that as selfless service. The arrangements we had with Marge, where I had less expenses than if I had to have my own place with rent and everything. That helped. But even though that was going on, I totally used my savings to be able to do that. So for me to continue, that also means that some of the dynamics will need to be that Called by Love can also, that either I'm able to get some income from other sources, then I'm still able to volunteer for Called by Love, and or Called by Love is also growing in a way that is sustainable. And I'm doing a lot of things on my own. Of course, there are opportunities for growing a team or selfless service. But so, yes, I think there is a lot we can do. I have lots of ideas that, because it was more of a in a supporting role, it wasn't so much my place, or I didn't have the time to implement this, but I have ideas about, really bringing the matrix that we've been using, the 7 to 7 years matrix, to life, the golden threads that we have had, like bringing this in more interactive, multimedia ways of bringing the sacred love stories together. So that's a little sample.
And so I'm excited about this. I'm really delighted. And so one of the reasons that Fabienne was the person who did the welcoming and the invocation this morning is that there is something I've been totally aware of for my 30 years in ministers, that the person who sets the energy at the beginning of the service actually is beginning the creation of a field. And then as the experience unfolds, it moves into a dynamic of the energy of spirit descending. And that begins with the invocation. And the invocation actually then goes into the descent, spirit descending, in order that it can connect on the human planes, the earthly planes, Mother Earth, the divine feminine, the Shekinah, and that energy of the masculine and the feminine in a mystical union, a mystical marriage, then create the birthing of the new. And in the human form, that occurs in the form of children being birthed into human form. In the spiritual realm, it occurs in the realms of vibrational fields of consciousness, that people say, oh my God, I didn't know this. I've said that probably 3 times as many per year as when I was actively involved in being a senior minister at Unity in Walnut Creek and Unity of Tustin and all of the places that I've served in ministry. The last 11 years of my life, I have learned at least as much as I learned in the previous 30 years. And so I'm excited about seeing where that goes as it reveals itself in new dimensions. And that in part will be potentially under Fabienne's developing of new dimensions in Called by Love Institute. Part of it will be there. Part of it may be in Kansas City, which is the international headquarters of the Unity movement. part of it may be in places that I haven't even imagined yet. And I'm sure that that will be true, because all of the realms that I've fallen into, that's one way of describing it, or have descended upon me in the last 11 years, often initiated by the pain of loss, that I never even really knew about them before, and had to say yes to learning from the experience of something that was beyond anything I'd ever known about. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing what that is, what that means, how that unfolds. And so for me, it's an exciting time. So I would love to see who else has something to share about how they can see in their own life, how their values have shifted, how their intentions have suddenly dissolved and something that they had not expected is emerging. So if any of you have anything to share, please raise your hand. I'd love to hear you share about it. And this is partly about you saying yes to all of the things that you see in your own lives, because this is not about an individual receiving. This is not even about an individual leading a collective. This is about the collective receiving and ultimately the collective manifesting. And it will look very, very different than anything that is normative from the previous ways. Unity of Tustin is beginning to tap into this in their new form of senior leadership, which involves 3 people. And I'm so delighted to see that. So it's with Craig, and Craig in his leadership role, it really powerful and strong in meditation, and Blair in his leadership role with years and years and years of experience. He's one of the most highly regarded ministers in the unity movement. And then Shara, who is bringing in all of her years of experience, including the same ordination that Fabienne has. And she's now in the field licensing program for Unity. So it's fascinating to see it emerging on its own and the people saying yes to the call. So who's next?
We have Cecilia, but I also see Shara. I see you're still here, and I read your beautiful message in the chat. Would you like to come live if you are still able, or do you want me to read your message? Either way is totally fine.
You could read my message. I'm driving to a meeting that's mandatory, but I wanted to come in and show my love, and I'm inspired by the generativity and the unfolding. I bless you and love you, Fabienne. I bless you and love you, Marge. Ed, I hope you're big enough for the challenge. I know you are. I know you are. But it's just a time for us to fall into that amazing mystery of the loving that is so beyond what we can plan and predict, and just sense and respond our way into this evolving, emerging future. And you are all living it and demonstrating it. And it's just very inspiring. I send you all so much love. And it's even wonderful to be part of this journey as a witness. And I look forward to continuing the conversation and participating in your joy as you all blossom into the next chapter.
Well said.
Thank you, Shara.
Thank you very much. So beautiful.
I love your hope for Ed. One of the delightful things about Ed's and my journey is that we have given each other initiations. And some of them have been initiated by yeses. Some of them have been initiated by no's. And Ed shared one of them when he shared, I'm a Midwest kind of guy.
Yes, we can take it lightly with humor, but also there is lots of love and just well wishes for everyone. So Cecilia, how about we go to you? Good to see you too.
Thank you. Hello, Fabienne, Marge, and Ed. I just so happy for you. I've seen Ed plenty on the different calls. I had no idea, but I'm tickled, and I love the way Ed says, and the rest was history. And may you guys continue to make history. And Marge, oh my God, meeting you and being at Unity the years that I was in such a deep healing place. And I just felt such guidance and direction from Called by Love. And of course, Fabienne, my sister, it's just so good to see you. I'm so happy that you're willing to take on the mantle, and lots of prayers and congratulations coming from me for all of you and for the whole community. Part of my journey is, and I walk the red road. I've been doing Lakota ceremony for about 10, 11 years. And it is part of my heritage. My family is from Sonora, Mexico, and I'm Yaqui. Yeah, part of my bloodline is Yaqui. And something happened this morning where I was considering and I was committing to doing a vision quest this weekend, but I woke up with a lot of questions, and it just like with that willingness for great mystery to lead the way. That's my absolute favorite name for the beloved, for God, the great mystery. And so I was working through it, and then I get a text from my roommate that says she just tested positive for COVID. And there it went. I said, nope, there's no way I'm going to even take a chance of exposing anyone to anything, right? And what I'm grateful for is just the relief I felt and the confidence and the guidance. And I just knew there wasn't any pushback in me. It was just like, no, here's your answer. You were wondering? Well, here it is. And just to have that kind of faith and trust, that's developed throughout my lifetime. And I'm just grateful for the openness to it. And also, again, for the time I spent at Unity. I mean, you guys have no idea how much time I spent in those gardens, just praying and crying sometimes, and just feeling the peace.
Yeah.
So I am just so happy to be here today and to add my well wishes and love. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Cecilia. The gardens have so much higher and deeper in them. Every single garden site has its realms of higher and deeper. Every single garden site has the 7 or 8 levels in it. And it depends on where you are in your own perception. And, I love that you mentioned the tears, because there's some garden sites, in fact, all of them have the potential for that, especially site 1, the void and the darkness, and lots of tears in that. All of the times of loss in my life, the death of my son is an example, the death of my brother would be another example, one 10 years ago and one very recent. And yet it also has the examples, the potential for exquisite joy. And isn't it fascinating that right now, where I am in my own journey in consciousness, I'm experiencing both simultaneously. I'm experiencing the sorrow over the death of my brother. I'm experiencing the joy over the emergent energy that Ed and I are experiencing, that is birthing energy. And both simultaneously. And our hearts are big enough for both. And interestingly, sometimes the death and the rebirth go together. And all of the energy of what we're experiencing now, called retrogrades and all kinds of stuff that is difficult actually in some of the planetary transits for the rest of the year, are about redefining our lives, rebirthing our lives. And I put anything with the word re in front of it, you know, renewing our lives. So figure out what that means to you. How do you put re in front of your bringing awareness, redefining awareness. So many ways. So thank you, Cecilia. It's beautiful. And I see Patty.
I just want to say something before we go to Patty. Cecilia, you brought up a lot, you know, through the years and today. I don't think we will get to it today, but even you mentioning the red road, and there was a whole other things, right? It's the golden thread, but also the red thread, which to me connects to the red road. And then how you got to your clarity about your question, but also your connection with Jen, right? Jen is on the call today in audio, so she's listening to us. And then you stayed with Jen in Northern California, right? So there is again those threads of love that are continuing to unfold. So Jen, if you want to come on the phone, I think you can to unmute so I can see you want to speak. It's just, I think you're start 6 for you. I know you also had you can think about it and decide after we talk to Patty, but I just wanted to thank you. And
let me add one more thing based on something you said, Fabienne. There are people in our lives that we have not met yet.
Yes.
That are part of our lives in future time. An example of this are 2 beautiful, beautiful souls that I met in Boulder. And Johnny Thomas used to attend Unity of Tustin in the early 2000s. He's now a professor of engineering at the University of Colorado. And when I went into a panic because I made the decision to bring my brother home, with it knowing the hospital said we cannot dismiss him to go home unless he has 24/7 care. And I made that decision because the only thing my brother wanted was to go home. Please take me home. Please get me out of here. And begging, I want to go home. Well, his wish has come true, but he didn't define home the way he thought he was going to. But let me give you the example of there are people in our lives we don't even know yet. I called Johnny and I said, who do you know in Boulder that could help me get in touch with caregivers 24/7 and have them in place with less than 24 hours? We had about 12 hours to do it. And he said, I know one person, Mary is her name, Mary Hostetter. And he said, she knows some caregivers. She's told me about them. They're really spiritually oriented people. And so Johnny called Mary. Mary said, yes, she would welcome a call from me. And I called her. She began to network with people that she knew. I'd never met Mary knowingly at all. We discovered later we had been on some of the same stages courses, but I'd never met her. I had never met her husband, Ross. I didn't think. We discovered later that both of us had been in a week-long intensive in San Diego along with Fabienne, and Ross was there, I was there, Fabienne was there, but I never had a one-on-one conversation with Ross. Now, because Mary was married to Ross, it happened to work out to bring in two of the energies that were most needed. Mary is a professional in real estate and knows real estate and managing even property. And Ross is a lawyer. Interestingly, those are two of the gifts of genius that would become mandatory. Understanding real estate and understanding legal needs and applications. And here are two people I didn't even know about that would become absolutely essential in my life as this experience unfolded between January 12th, my brother's birthday, and where we are now in time. It will probably go on for the rest of the year because now it's in probate. But I didn't know them even. And through them, I've met many new people I didn't know before. I've also learned things I never wanted to know about aging. So all kinds of things come into our lives that give us new levels of information, new levels of learning, new levels of spirit descending and the soul ascending. And we are in some way called by God and called by love to be guides in that process. I used to use the example of Lewis and Clark exploring the Louisiana Purchase. And Ed and I have even driven by some of the murals that are in Kansas City of Lewis and Clark getting ready to launch into the exploration of the Louisiana Purchase. It had never been mapped before. No one knew what the map would look like. Sometimes they went alone, sometimes they went together, sometimes they brought in groups of people who would assist them, for example, Indian tribes. Sometimes those Indian tribes became enemies, and they dealt with polarities. Sometimes when they thought they could canoe to the Pacific Ocean, they found out that was impossible and they had to climb mountains instead. So sometimes we have to give up our canoes in order to climb the mountains. We don't know what the map's going to look like, but as long as we are aligned with spirit, as long as we are saying yes to that energy of involution and evolution, spirit descending and the soul ascending, with it spiraling down and spiraling up, going like this constantly in our lives, it will find us wherever we are, whatever we are dealing with, it will find us. So let's go to Patty.
Thank you, Marge, for clearing up the whispers. I'd heard that you were going to Arizona or New Mexico, and I'm glad you're going home to Ed and to Kansas City. That sounds so perfect, because what I've learned from you is that in the Enneagram, you're into intimacy and relationships, and the sexual, deep, close one-on-one relationships, and I've admired that about you, because you let spirit just guide you and you go for it. And whereas I am more of the I'm the self-pres person who takes care of myself, and I keep thinking, how can I be more like Marge, and that you're able to really connect close on one-on-one. And I think what it is I really like a lot of people at the same time. And thanks to you, Marge, I have gotten through COVID partly because of Unity of Tustin. We Zoom, we can meet, on Sundays in the garden. I have people that I've met that are scattered around the country that say how important the gardens are to them still. The people who aren't members of Unity, who come to the gardens regularly. So that's a real gift that you've created for our community and for the world. And I hope that your strong leadership for women reignites there, because at this moment in time, I see that that's very needed in our world. So I encourage you to get back into whatever you were doing, or take it another, step further. So I just thank you and Fabienne so much for being part of my life. You've really opened me up to mysticism and to so much love and beauty. And I get to meet Ed from a distance. I hope you'll stay connected with us and come back often and do workshops. I remember with Joy, the one we did, that silent retreat we did up north of Boulder, the monastery that burned down. I forget what the name of it is, but maybe you can do another retreat for us. So thank you so much. Blessings, everyone.
What I know is that it's going to a new level, Patty, and it's never about going back to where we were. Right now, we are in a revolutionary, there's that RE, revolutionary, evolutionary with an RE in front of it. It's a revolutionary energy. We're going into levels of mystical knowing that most of the human plane doesn't even understand yet. And it's not about us coercing them or even trying to demand that they know it. It's about our living it. It's about experiencing it. It's about being it in the world and allowing spirit to show everyone the way. And it's absolutely incredible to, for me, to see it happening from beyond the human mind. I have a pretty good mind, and I have to thank Ed for part of that, because it was, in fact, his no to me that still invited me to say yes to a doctoral degree at the University of Massachusetts. So sometimes our strengths come out of no's as well as yeses. And so we have to begin to understand the integration of the polarities. We have to begin to understand how to dance all of the colors of the rainbow. And what I'm finding right now is I'm really attracted to the simpler life. I'm really attracted to family and closeness and intimacy. I'm not even thinking about launching a year-long course. That might happen in the future. It could happen with Ed and I. He's been in real estate. He's been not only licensed as a realtor, he's licensed as a broker and worked in mortgage banking. He has gifts and skills I don't even understand.
Boys down.
How do we integrate these gifts of genius that other people have that may relate to parts of our lives that we don't even understand? I mean, I have some very rare kinds of awareness about mysticism because it keeps showing me things that are rare, and it keeps downloading. Most people don't even use the word download. They use words like intuition. Both are good words, but they're different. Intuition comes, in part at least, from the human mind. Downloading comes from spirit. Who would like to come on and share where they are?
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
Kay.
Hi, Marge.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Fabienne stopped in the bookstore last Sunday to say hello. And she mentioned that you were going to Kansas City, but didn't tell me why. And I thought, what on earth could take March to Kansas City? And now I realize it's a man. And so I understand best reason. But I just wanted to say that you've been such a part of my life and my spiritual growth. I hope you somehow still stay in touch with us via Zoom or however, but we can't completely just let you go. So I hope that that's in the works a little bit. Also, as you know, my interest in astrology and Uranus contacting natal Uranus is huge, huge. It's about the biggest thing that can happen on a chart. So you're honoring it. You're going with the flow on that. And as for Fabienne, she's taking on quite a big chore herself. She'll have my complete support. So good luck, Fabienne. I'll be with you. And stay in touch, March.
Oh, thank you. And Kay, I just want to tell you how important you have been in my life and how important you have been to Called by Love. You know, you have been one of the really key people in giving it direction, and you stepped into the role of assisting me. And then when you couldn't one day because you were sick and you said, I am really sick, I can't be here tomorrow. It was for a weekend event. And that was when, this is synchronicity, how it happens. That was when I looked around the room and Fabienne was there because she had contacted me and said, I see there's an event going on for Unity. Can I stay with you and come to it? And I said, yes. And I looked around the room and I thought, who can assist me if Kay can't be here because she's sick? And there were, I don't know, 30 or 40 people in the room, and Spirit just directed my eyes to Fabienne. And I thought, oh my God, she's brand new to being here all the time. But if she can assist Tony Robbins, she can assist me.
Yep. It would have been an immediate, easy choice for me. Wouldn't even have to think twice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Fabienne has an amazing background. She's a senior leadership coach with Tony Robbins, and incredible background in organizing events online. She has all of the potential, even to take it into 2 languages, which she's already dialoguing with someone in Belgium about. So when she goes to Belgium to visit her parents, that's her first motive, human motive, but there may be a spiritual motive beyond that. And it may relate to this being broadcast ultimately in 2 languages. So isn't it wild how Spirit develops things? Even bringing a man into my life again, a redo.
Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Thank you, Kay, and thank you for your support.
Ed and I will no longer be calling our life and our relationship an unfinished love story. We're in process of finishing it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kay. Thank you for the support. I don't know if anybody else want to come on. Let me get back onto
Patricia and Judy Wallace have their hands up.
Who's
May I
that?
come? Patricia,
Yes,
good
yes.
morning. Sorry, I was in and out the phone. I was in and out. I didn't hear. So you are moving away to go be near Ed, is that correct? March?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Lucky man you, Ed. How long will you be here? Long enough for me to get you down here for supper or lunch or something?
My plan is to fly to Kansas City a week from today
Oh,
with a one-way ticket. Ed and I are going to then be in Kansas City. We're going to be talking about all of the potentials, looking at possibilities for even a place to live together, and we're going to be inviting the universe to show us the miracle that is absolutely perfect.
my gosh, Marge, you're a man magnet. I have to resonate with what you said about the simpler life and family, and how the deeper relationships are the most meaningful. My daughter and I just got back from going up north, where I have a large part of my tribe, and Marge knows, but for those of you who don't know, I have 3 children and 10 grandchildren and 21 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
And now I have 1 great-great-grand, which I got to hold and feel his essence, and a precious, very special little soul has come in. And then we were there for a shower for one that'll be coming in June. And it's such a different life for me, because I was the consummate businesswoman, real estate ed still am doing some of it for over 42 years. And then Marge has been a great support of my new book. And I would love to have gotten up there while you were here to maybe do a book signing, but I guess that's, well, I guess it's in Fabienne's corner now. Is that correct? Fabienne is now stepping in as,
yes, but if you mean about at Unity of Tustin, then that's not really in my corner, but we have others on the call, or we can connect you with
okay.
those who can facilitate that at Unity, because Call by Love really doesn't have a location. We were meeting at Unity, and now
all right. I don't know what this structure is. Anyway, I just throw that out because Marge was one of my very first champions and would always hold up my book. And I mean, I was so touched by that. We've had a connection for many years, but not a very close time together, but we didn't seem to need it. We could just pick up the minute we saw each other. Anyway.
What is the title of your book, Patricia?
Mystic Cloudwalker. Marge has one. She'll show it to you. Anyway, thank you all. I'm sorry I have to get in and out this morning, but I wanted a little bit of all of you. And now, but you'll be on the calls in the future, Marge, Ed?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Oh, and Patricia, Shara was on the call today. And Shara is one of the team of 3 that are senior ministers, senior leadership team at Unity in Tustin. So, and Shara is a wonderful person for you to get to know. So
I don't see a Shara.
Yeah, she had to leave, and Craig was on the call on audio as well. I believe he had to leave as well. But yes, we can definitely have introduce you to the team over there. Yes, Ed.
Thank you.
Unmute, Ed. Unmute.
We cannot hear you, Ed.
Oh, okay, unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Marge, make sure you make it very clear that everyone is invited to Kansas City.
The old song, Kansas City, here I come.
Yeah,
right back where I started from. Yeah. We might have to look for a bigger house, Ed.
I don't think so.
But
And
was there someone else who had their hand raised before? Oh, yes, Judy. There we go. I'm asking to unmute.
hey, Judy. I see you. Unmute, Judy. Unmute.
We're asking you to unmute. It should pop up.
I see
Or
it.
you can, there we go.
Okay, not my thing. None of this computer stuff is.
Hi, Judy.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to congratulate, I would just be thankful that the two of you are together, that you're both happy, that you're doing something that is just happened and you're following what's going on for you. And I'm really happy for you. It's been a good journey, a great journey. And I too am doing something different in my life. Not really different, just a little bit of a switch in just in my way of practicing my spiritual life. And I am really happy, and I'm found a way that I can be more still and that I can go forward with amazing guidance. So just have to follow it.
You know, you are an example, Judy, of how people can come into our lives and be so significant at one point in time and stay in our lives in ways that continue. And you were part of the congregation at Unity in Walnut Creek, which was my very first ministry.
Yeah.
And you were part of the group of people that invited Paul and I to start a new church. And we did, and you were on the board of that new church. And you and I have remained wonderful friends, prayer partners with Stan and Cy for a while.
Yeah.
Over many, many years.
Right.
And in many ways, the same kind of nurturing relationship that Ed and I had. We had this really significant relationship in the beginning. We had a passionate, romantic love affair in the beginning years of our relationship. You know, we're not trying to replicate that anymore. It's amazing how we mature even into the way that we manifest.
And I must say that I'm happy, like anytime I've ever had a question and I call you, you've always been there. And sometimes I wonder, well, am I doing even considering the right thing? And you always was supportive whatever question I had. I remember that. So I thank you and I wish you all the best, Fabienne also.
Oh, thank you,
Thank
Judy.
you, Judy.
And you know what I know about you is you've always been there for me. You've been there for me when I called you and said, I'm headed your way. Can I stay with you? And your answer is always yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And I'm assuming that will continue.
Yeah. If the grandchildren aren't here, it's so much chaos. I'm telling you, it's chaos. Last time they came, we had COVID for 30 days.
How beautiful it is.
Yeah.
So wonderful, wonderful. So who else wants to share? We have just
Can't talk right now.
I will let you know a little bit about the unfolding. I didn't see any other hands, but let me remove the spotlights to make sure. I'm going to go back to gallery view. Did anybody else wanted to come on? Don't see anyone. I removed the background here because Mort and I used to have a tradition for the last couple of years I would decorate the house before her birthday. And then she said, well, you should leave it until your birthday, my birthday. So we've done that the last couple of years. This year was different with the trip in Willard, and I was holding a little memorial for Willard here while March's birthday, and we had the email celebration. But when I realized that the day that I leave to Belgium would have been Bud's 63rd birthday, I decided, so I removed all the other decoration, but I left that big sign up there that I decided I will leave it until I leave, which will be his birthday. And it's right underneath, we don't see it very well right now, but it's right underneath his lotus that he did in stained glass. And many of you know about his stained glass and even the logo of Called by Love being him. But Marge also had given me the fractal, the small stained glass from one of our trips that really, this one is white. I will maybe share a picture, but Bud has been really present. And as we are simplifying also here, and me needing also to move with no clarity yet about what will be the next steps, I do have a flight ticket to come back. So I'm going to Belgium for and will be present for my dad's 95th birthday and also Father's Day this year in Belgium. And then there was no clarity yet about where I'm coming back. I decided then all my things will be in storage. I will stay there a little longer than I would have otherwise planned. So as of now, I have a return ticket for July 24th. And, you know, Craig and I are talking, and we have lots of consideration, the same way there are considerations to continue Called by Love that not only, but includes finances. The next steps involve that for me as well. So, but I wanted to really honor Bud and his birthday. And through the last couple of days, I've also put like big heart in the backyard. And let me see if I can share some of very quickly some of the pictures. This is this Russian doll that I circle with all some of the glass that Bud had literally from Belgium. Like, to me, like, what were the chances of that, right? And so both his legacy continues also with some of the things that were important to him. It didn't work to transfer the pictures, but the other day Craig came and Margaret said she didn't have an attachment to his baseball glove and ball. So we were playing with that, and Craig took that and he will play with his grandson. And just a way of knowing that some of our belongings, even when they go somewhere else, they might continue to have a life of their own. And if we want, I can share one more thing, which is I was very close to that area where I had Bud's stained glass, not stained glass, but the glass from Belgium. And let me see if it's ready. I had me do this quickly and see if I can share as we finish. So first, the butterfly literally land again on my hand, as it has happened many times over the last 7 years. And some of you know the story. I'm going to fast track a little bit here. And you can see the stained glass in the back there, the glass from Bud and from Belgium. So it stayed there for nearly 2 minutes. And then as he had, it flies away. And then, thank you. And then the next thing was, I might need to reshare this. The next thing is when, is the pictures that was in the email where it came to land on Bud's glass from Belgium. So again, all the points of connection and there is no logical explanations for all of that. So I know it's divinely orchestrated. I know it will continue to be divinely orchestrated through the unknowing, and but also through the blessings and the gratitude. So just thank you for everyone for coming on the call. Marge, is there something else you wanted to share? In the meantime, I'll post the link. Just
Wind us up with the one sentence out of the quote that I used in the beginning. You are undergoing an important transition in your life. You will be, in some sense, reborn. You are entering a chrysalis stage where seminal ideas emerge that will be seeds for a new phase. You are becoming the butterfly emerging. Yes. And Fabienne, did you want to continue with the wrap, the invocation to come to the blessing?
yes, I will do one more thing. Make sure I can do that. Sorry. One person team doing the technology here. I will let go of the technology and just be here with the presence. By thanking everyone, and thank you, Marge and Ed, and everyone who came to share or came to listen, will watch later, will listen later, to know that as we are called by love and continue to be ambassadors of love, like the butterfly spreading the love, like the image of the heart that was in the email, where the big heart also has all the individual hearts spreading our love and our blessings, that wherever we are, wherever we go, we can be a conduit for divine and human love and light, and that all is in the unfolding for the highest good of all concerned, and that the guidance will come, the clarity will come, the support will be shown, so that the path is clear for us individually as well as a collective together. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marge, and to be continued.
And for everyone, happy birthday. Another synchronicity, Fabienne. July 24th is actually my birth father's birthday.
Oh, really?
Also Brenda's birthday.
Wow. Wow.
There's more miracles coming.
That's beautiful. So to continue with our tradition, if there is no other final word, I would play Liebestraum, Dream of Love, that I know, well, maybe Marge, on this occasion, why don't you tell us about the significance of Dream of Love, and I will bring your picture with the harp.
Oh, you know, Dream of Love, Liebestraum, has been in my life since I was in my teens. I played the harp. I worked for a whole summer to rent a harp. My parents said they wouldn't support me in getting a harp until I proved that I would practice. So you're invited to practice. And when I learned to play the harp, ultimately I did dinner music in a local restaurant in Boulder, and played in the concert band when we toured for Union College. But Liebestraum was my absolute favorite piece that I played on the harp. And so over and over again, we've used Liebestraum as our closing for every call that we've done for Called by Love. And so let us all practice so that we can all play the dream of love. Liebestraum.